Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes weekly webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Today I'm really excited to show you some gorgeous papers, die cuts, and rub-ons from our friends at Stamperia. This is the Daisy Art Collection, and it is absolutely beautiful. So let's take a closer look. We can start with our paper pack. I'll move aside the chipboard pieces for now, and our rub-ons. We'll take a closer look at those in just a minute, but we can flip through our paper pack to start with. So the 8x8 paper pack has 10 double-sided sheets. You can see swatches of those here on the front. Now when I open this up, you'll notice that you've got a bonus sheet of some cutout elements on the inside front cover. The same is true for the inside back cover. So you've got some extra cutout elements in here to incorporate into your artwork as well. Now as we're flipping through, you'll notice this beautiful soft watercolor color palette. You've also got, of course, the daisy theme going throughout these designs with some all-over pattern papers, some with borders. Of course, Stamperia is well known for their collage style of background paper, so you've got some grid design back here overlapping with some of the illustrated artwork. I think the illustrations in here are really just stunning. Now, you've also got in this paper pack, aside from the all-over designs and the collage designs, you have some cutout elements in here too. So with these square pieces, you'll notice you've got a heavily illustrated design on one side. When I flip this over, the reverse side has some room for personalization. I think this collection is probably up there with one of my favorites. I absolutely love this. Here's some more cutouts. Again, the reverse side gives you some more options, and then here we are at the inside back cover. So it is a value-packed collection and absolutely beautiful. Now there are also two sets of rub-on transfers. You've got the Daisy and Butterfly and Daisy Harmonious. Now with both of these, you've got instructions on the back of the package. They're really easy to apply, and I will demonstrate that for you as well. But you can see they just coordinate beautifully with one another, of course, and as well with those pattern papers. Now with the chipboard embellishments, I've put all of these onto two background pieces so that we can see them a bit easier. There are 40 pieces in all. You'll have some sentiments. You'll also have some elements that you can use for the front of your card or the inside. And of course, plenty of little accent pieces in here as well. So you can see the daisy theme here as well as the artwork theme. I think that just works together really beautifully. Beautiful illustrations, beautiful designs, just so much that you can work with here. And it is a lot of fun to incorporate these into cards and other paper crafts. So as you can see, we have a lot of fabulous papers and embellishments to play with today. I'm really glad you're here, and I'm so excited to explore the possibilities with you. So come play with us. Our first card features a collage of chipboard elements placed on one of the square cutouts from the paper pack. And I've started my card first by covering the card front with two shades of teal cardstock. And these both come from the Coastal Nostalgia cardstock pack. And I'm using this throughout this webisode today. You can see all of those gorgeous colors here. They work really nicely with the pattern papers in today's collection. So that was a nice coincidence. I've trimmed down this piece of pattern paper slightly narrower than the card front. And I absolutely love this design with all of the sketched patterns on here. You've got some scribbles and some swirls and some lines on here, and it just makes a really gorgeous background paper. Then for the focal, I've chosen one of the square cutouts from the paper pack. This has a teal border printed on it, which is almost the same shade as one of our teal cardstock colors. I've matted this piece onto the lighter teal cardstock color and then added the whole thing to the card front with some foam tape. So I've got a little bit of lift there. Now remember, these square cutouts are double-sided, and I've chosen the less patterned of the two sides. Here's another one as an example. So you've got a pattern on one side, a sentiment, large images. You could use this as the focal of your card or for the inside. But then, of course, on the other side, you've got a similar coordinating design that has some open area here for you to add your own personalization. Now, what I like about this one is that although it is the less patterned of the two sides, it still has this beautiful border with the colored pencils, and it's got the sketchbook and some grid patterning on here, and it is the perfect place to layer with chipboard elements. So I'm going to show you my chipboard pieces here. You'll see that I've got the ruler, I've got the pencils. This is one piece. Those two pencils are together. And then I have the paint tube, butterfly, and a button on here. When I'm arranging all of these elements, and I'll show you with this cutout, I will often kind of play with the positioning, figure out how I want them overlapping and coordinating with the background image, and then glue all of them together as one piece. And I often use a clothespin to kind of clamp everything together while the glue is drying. And then I can also add some foam tape if I want to layer this piece up on foam tape, as I've done with our card. And then again, I can kind of play with the positioning here and make sure that I've got this going the direction I want it to. Just makes it a little bit easier when you're working with one unit rather than lots of different ones. So that's my little trick on working with all of those collage pieces, especially when you're layering them up with multiple layers of foam tape. So for example, I've got foam tape underneath the pencils. I've got 2 layers of foam tape underneath this area of the paint tube so that everything is more or less flat and even. And then I've got my butterfly here. This is also popped up with extra foam tape under those wings. And then I have a button, and that's just simply glued straight down. And then at the bottom, of course, I have my Script Dazzle sentiment and a little heart, which is also on that Script Dazzle set. On the inside, I've got a design that's kind of wrapping around another one of the Dazzle's sentiments here. So I've got the Sending Smiles, and then along the edge, I've got this Daisy rub-on. This is from the Daisy and Butterfly rub-on set. Now the dazzles are overlapping the rub-on, and then I've used 2 paintbrush chipboard pieces to sort of direct your eye in toward this area of the inside of the card. And of course, I've got this beautiful pattern paper on here as well. Now with those paint brushes, they are longer than what I needed. They extend past the edge of my card. So I've simply glued them in place and then used scissors to snip off the excess. Now the glue that I'm using for this is the acrylic glue, and I have mine inside one of these precision applicator bottles, so it makes it a lot easier to apply the adhesive, especially with these narrower chipboard elements. Make sure that I've got it just where I want it to go. Now these rub-ons are a snap to apply, so let's have a quick demo and you'll see why these are such a popular embellishment. So I'm going to bring in just a piece of plain white smooth cardstock, and I've got my flower rub-on. Now let me show you once again the rub-on set that I'm working with. You've got so many different beautiful elements here. Great for card focals for the inside, and then you've also got some smaller pieces here which are nice to use as accents. When I'm cutting out my rub-on from that backing sheet, I'm going to make sure that I keep both layers together. I want to make sure I'm not handling the reverse side of this piece, which is where the image is. So I'm going to be pretty careful with this and kind of figure out where I want this to go and then position it down. So if I want it angled or if I want it in the center or up toward one side. And then I'm going to simply place this down. I'm going to fold up a little corner of this plastic piece here. It's going to give me a bit of a handle to hang on to. And I'll smooth this down with my finger. Now, this has some stick to it, so it's not going to go sliding around. I'll grab my bone folder for this and simply burnish this in place. Now I want to be really careful around the outside edges of my design. Make sure that I get all of the little edges of the flower petals, these leaves, and the detail images here, the details of the image, and then just burnish right across the center. And I'm using a bone folder for this. You'll notice that I've got this at an angle here, and I'm using the flat side of that tip rather than the pointy tip. And you don't need to put a whole lot of muscle into this, but you do want to make sure that you've got smooth, even burnishing on here. And then I'll grab onto that corner, kind of gently, slowly peel this up. As I do, I notice that I didn't get the tips of those two petals, so I can just put this back in place and burnish again. This is the nice thing about working slowly, is that you've got some room for adjustment if you need to. So kind of walk this around and just make sure that I've got that all transferred. And there you go. Beautiful design, super easy to do, and it's a really nice way of adding dimension and color and texture to your design without adding a lot of bulk. And it works really nicely not only on the white section of the inside of my card, but also layers beautifully with the text on this patterned background paper. So you can see such a simple card project, and one that is so easy to adapt to any of the other chipboard elements too. So when you're combining those square cutouts and those chipboard pieces, you really have a lot of different design possibilities. Alrighty, let's have a look at another card. Our next card project has a focal made up of 2 layered chipboard pieces. So I have this really beautiful watering can image and the With Love banner, which is just simply glued right on top. And then I've also got another little accent here with this bow tied in a piece of jute twine. And this is using the jute twine pack. This is one of my favorite ways to add a touch of softness and dimension to a card project without adding a whole lot of bulk. Now, another thing I want to point out here is the layer of vellum that I've got placed on top of this daisy pattern paper. And I wanted to soften the pattern paper a little bit so that it didn't compete so much with this chipboard piece. And white vellum is always a great solution for this. So let me bring in another piece of pattern paper. This is a different sheet than what I'm using on my card, but I think you can see with this beautiful design on here, there's a lot going on, lots of colors, lots of patterns, lots of different shapes. And if I'm positioning my chipboard piece right on top, there can be a bit of competition visually because there's a lot going on my chipboard piece with the daisies, different colors, the For You tag on here. And a way to be able to still use those 2 coordinating elements is to simply soften back that pattern paper with a little bit of white vellum. So I've got a piece layered on here, and I think you can see the difference. And when I place this on top, that this creates a really nice sort of muted effect for that chipboard piece, so that can really shine. Now, one thing that I've done, because I really wanted to take advantage of that gorgeous pattern on here, is I've done some really simple folding with that vellum, top and bottom opposite corners on that sheet that I've got there. So what I've done is simply folded back the top and the bottom corner. I'm going to bring in a piece of black cardstock. I think it's a bit easier to see this here. With my top corner, I've simply folded this down like so, and I do recommend you grab that bone folder that you use for your rub-ons, and this will give a nice crisp folded edge. So that's what I've done at the top. And then on the opposite corner, I've folded this up a little bit wider like so. Again, use that bone folder for a nice crisp edge, and then fold this back on itself and have that tip extend just a little bit past this edge. And this gives you just a really nice little bit of extra interest on the card design. Again, without adding a lot of bulk, still letting the pattern paper do its work, and also creating a spotlight element for your focal. And then for the rest of my card, I covered the card front with that gorgeous green solid cardstock, added in a kind of cream color. I've got the teal on here as well, so everything is coordinating really easily. Then for the card inside, I have a very simple message. I've got the rub-on here and the script dazzle overlapping, plus one of the little heart stickers from the sheet. Now I want to show you the dazzle sheets. So here's just one. Now, of course, I'm using black here on the cards, and this one is this teal. They do come in lots of different colors, but you can see the beautiful script on here. So many different options. And then you've also got these smaller accent pieces with the flowers, and you've got some hearts on there too. And I just really love incorporating those smaller pieces in with my card design. So that is our second card. Let's have a look at another idea. This card is a cutaway style of design, and this is a really fun way to add another twist to your vertical card designs. So I've simply trimmed off 1.5 inches from just the front of my 5 by 6.5 inch card base. Now there's no magic to that 1.5 inches. You can vary the amount that you cut off from your cutaway card. You can also cut it straight. You could cut it at a diagonal. Lots of different options for you. But it's a fun way to have a different kind of card format. So then I've covered this side of the card with a sheet of the pattern paper that has all of these beautiful designs. And this is what I really love about all of the patterns from Stamperia, is that with these collage backgrounds, you can really incorporate lots of different colors and designs just from one sheet of paper. So here it has the ring binding. You've got these kind of watercolor drips. You've got a beautiful all over pattern design with the butterflies and the florals. So lots of different designs in just one sheet. So there's not a whole lot else that I need to do to the front of the card to make a really nice design. I'm just adding a square cutout from the paper pack. I have a flower rub-on here, and then overlapping the stems, I have the sentiment rub-on. So let me show you from the rub-on sheet. This is the main flower that you can see on here. And then I'm just overlapping this sentiment, rubbing one rub-on on top of the first one. So you can do some really nice dimensional layering on here. And of course, when you've got a beautiful pattern background to work with, all you need to do is add a couple of things and you're ready to go. Then at the top corner, I've got some of the chipboard buttons layered up here. And I have a little hummingbird just tucked in here. Now he's made with the stained glass die set. So let me show you this die set. This is one that I really like to use, and I've got 2 hummingbirds in here. They are facing different directions. So I'll point out right here on the packaging, you can see how these different elements can get layered up, and the hummingbirds, one will face right, one will face left, and you've got 2 different sizes on there. And I've simply die cut these pieces using some of this green cardstock. So it's double-sided. So I'm using light and green. And I wanted to show you this with the larger of the 2 hummingbirds. I think it might just be a little bit easier to see because I've added some extra detail on here with a very simple sanding tool. So you can see the embossing on this hummingbird because I've simply sanded away the top layer of the cardstock. So I'm going to move his little wing aside, and I'm going to hold on to him by his beak, and then very gently and slowly I'm going to rub off with the sanding tool the top layer of this cardstock, and this will reveal the embossing on here. So as I'm shuffling away some of that top color, you can see that this is being revealed. Now I'll come along on his head. I'm going to be careful with his beak because that's such a fine piece and there's no embossing on it anyway, so I'll just be really careful with that. And then I can remove as much of that top layer as I want. And there we can see that beautiful detail coming out on there. Now I would do the same thing with his wing, give another little bit of dimension on there, and then you can glue the wing on top of this space where his wing would go, or you can leave him just as he is. And this is where it's nice to have 2 coordinating but contrasting colors of cardstock. so that you can create, again, a little bit more dimension on there. So this is a really fun way to incorporate some more design in with your card. So that's all on the front of my card. Now when I'm gluing this piece down onto the card front, I'm going to make sure that I don't put any adhesive down on this area here, because this is going to, of course, open up with the front of my card. And then on the inside, I've got this lined with that dark green cardstock, and I have a border of the pattern paper just here. This is the same paper that I used to cover the card front with, so you can really maximize the different designs on here. And I've also got a butterfly rub-on down here. Now I wanted to point this out because the rub-on is applied to darker cardstock, which is going to give it a more muted look than if it was applied to white or a lighter cardstock color. And then I've got my Happy Birthday Dazzle, this gorgeous scripty design. And of course, with the sticker sheet, I've got some of those hearts, and I've just used one as an accent on the front of the card. Our final card project has been made using a new to me die called the Easy Duo Display Die. I love it already. This is a super simple die to use, but it gives you this really cool effect. And that's this band that I've got going across the front of my fold back card, which extends to the inside back panel of my card, and then also here in the center with that little crossbar effect. Super simple to do and lots of different creative possibilities. Of course, the cutting die is going to make all the difference here, and this is the die set that I'm using. Now with hot off the press dies, you always have your project idea here on the front of the package. Here you can see I've got two metal pieces included. I've got the long strip and the crossbar. And then how to put those to use, we'll flip over the package. You've got written instructions, another look at that project idea, plus you've got your folding and assembly diagrams on here too to really make it simple. Now, where you see the red indicated on here, and in this case it's the crossbar, this is where we suggest you use that extra sticky tape for some added security. Alrighty, let's have a look again at the front of the package because I want to point out the measurements here. The card project idea that they're giving you and the project idea I'm showing you now are the same size. They measure 5 by 6.5 inches. And the measurement here on your long strip, this is going to be 10 inches long, and then of course the crossbar is the smaller of the two. The crossbar is optional, so you can do one of these, or you can do two of these, or you can do none of these. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the assembly of the design. Okay, so I'm going to start with my blank white card. I've got the fold here along the side. What I'll do is create a fold back card. So I'm going to grab just this front portion of the card and fold it back to meet the original fold. Okay, I'm going to crease that down. Again, your bone folder will come in handy for this, and this will give you this kind of design. This is also a fun design to work with. Now you can add in your cutting dies from here. So I'm going to move aside my card project and bring in these two portions that I've die cut. This is the crossbar, very simple to fold up. You'll fold on those score lines. This will give you like a little tabletop design. So you can do this and set that aside. And then here's your longer strip. You'll have a mountain fold and a valley fold. And again, just folding those up, give you the aerial view of that. And then from here, bring back in your card blank, and you will glue this long portion. You can see it's exactly the same width as my card. You'll glue this portion to the front of your card, leave this unglued, and glue this to the inside back of your card. I know this is tricky to see, especially with my hands in the way, so I've got one that is already glued together. So you can see it's going to go like so. Now the cool thing here is that you can position this band to go all the way at the bottom of your card. It could be in the center, it could be up at the top. I have to say this die set has so many creative possibilities. A great place to check is the webisode that's on the product page for this die on the Paper Wishes website. Paulette shares Debbie's card designs, and Debbie came up with so many different ways to use this die. So have a look, and I think you'll see what I mean. Debbie is really, really good. So in this case, what you can decide to do, if you want to add your crossbar in here, what you'll do is add your extra sticky tape on there and then glue this right into the center there. Now, what I find really helps, again, I've got my clothes peg here, grab this, and then you can kind of wiggle around with the positioning on there and then glue that in place. So before you add your duo display border, what you'll want to do is first cover your card front with your different pattern papers and add in your different designs here. So here I've covered the front and the inside with that patterned paper. And then I've added a focal here. Now I'm using another die for this. This is the 5 elliptical cutting dies. And this just worked really nicely for the rub-on that I've got here on this cream piece of cardstock layered onto a white elliptical. And then I've got my border going across here. I have a tag and then also this little cutout from the paper pack, jute twine here. And then when I open this up, you can see I've got the beautiful pattern paper. I've also got some chipboard daisies there in my crossbar section so that I've got some additional dimension in here as well. Super simple to do, but a lot of fun to put together, and I think also a great way to use those beautiful coordinating pattern papers, rub-ons, and chipboard pieces when you've got so many different elements that you like to put together. On the inside here, I've got another chipboard sentiment, and then I've got my card ready to go. And this is our final card project of the day today. So a very special thank you to our friends at Stamperia for this collection. It has been a lot of fun to work with. And a special thanks to you for joining me today. We're really glad that you're here, and we're happy you're a part of our Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 6 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.